Okay, I want to welcome you to Franchising 101 with Dana Hall from FranNet. He is a reoccurring presenter for us, and he's going to have lots of great information to share with you that you're going to find useful if you're thinking about franchising. Okay, I just want to do a quick intro for SCORE, and we'll get moving. So SCORE offers training. As you're on this webinar, you can go to the website or watch for our newsletter for other topics. We have every business topic you can imagine available for you to view. The most important thing that SCORE does is mentoring. Our mentors have a knowledge base and experience and expertise to share with those that are thinking about starting a business, in the process of starting a business, or already are in business. Sessions are free and confidential, as I say. And I'm always asked, what is a session like? They're about 30 to 60 minutes long. And that first session is about establishing goals and a plan to keep you moving forward. A mentor will bring in other experts as needed. And it's a fluid experience that will evolve with your needs as you move down the path to small business ownership. We do have the websites here. I'll put those in chat for you to access. That's how you can find a mentor in your area, or you can just put a note in chat and let me know, and I'll make sure that you're connected to the right person. We are going to just go ahead and use chat today for any questions, and there'll be an opportunity to ask questions live at the end if you would like to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop my share, and I'm going to turn it over to Dana, and you can go ahead and introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Let me make sure this is in presentation mode. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Teresa. We really appreciate the opportunity to present to your folks, and our partnership with SCORE, we covet. Been a great partnership for years. So thank you for letting us present. So real quick, who am I? My name is Dana Hall. I'm a franchise consultant with FranNet here in Boston, but we work across the country. I'll give it a bit of what FranNet is in a minute. My background, and I'm a local person to New England all my life. I went to graduate school here. I went to undergraduate here. I went to high school in the Boston area. And I worked in the connection to franchising, I worked for a couple of very large multi-unit franchisors that I'm sure we're all familiar with, Wendy's and Panera Bread. I was in corporate finance for almost 20 years with those organizations. So I understand franchising from that side of it. And I also worked for a company as a franchise business consultant for a couple of years as well. So working directly with franchisees. So kind of a full circle set of experiences around franchising. And so who is FranNet? We're an international franchise consulting firm. We have offices all across the US, about 100 of us in Canada, and also a few folks in Europe. As I mentioned, the partnership we have with SCORE is one of our most cherished. We also work with the small business development centers that help small businesses with a variety of challenges and issues. And it's almost all of it is free to business owners. And then on the other side of things, we work with about 250 really high quality franchise companies. That's one of the values we bring to the clients as we sort of vet those companies that we represent as options. And we have some really good relationships on the funding side, which is a big part of launching any small business, is being able to properly and effectively fund it. So what exactly do we do real quick? We match prospects, people that are considering small business ownerships with the right franchise for their situation. So we do this through education. We do this through asking a lot of questions. And then we provide choices. We get a really good profile. I spend a lot of time with a client to understand their needs, wants, goals, things to avoid. And then we'll try to match them up, if it's appropriate, with a franchise that's going to meet all those goals. We are not salespeople. We are not here to sell anything. We are here, especially today, to just educate and provide some information. But even when I work with folks, my role and my goal is not to sell anybody. It's to help them meet their goals. And oftentimes that can be done through franchise business ownership. And all of this for us is at no cost. Doesn't cost the client anything because those franchise companies will pay me a commission. So it's really a win-win-win all the way around for everybody. Just advance here. Give me a second. Here we go. So it will not be 60 minutes, our agenda. We're going to talk a little bit about why folks consider business ownership based on our experiences. What are your options? We're going to talk about some myths around franchising and really get some good reality about franchising, hopefully. And then if you're really interested, how do you identify or how do you at least begin to identify the right option? And that's through building your own personal sort of profile and business model. We'll talk about that briefly. So why ownership? And by the way, please ask questions. We can certainly interrupt at any point to clarify. This is not a huge audience, so happy to just interrupt at any time and help answer questions. So based on our experience, 30 years of experience with 100 consultants, we placed literally thousands of people into business. And what do they come to us with saying? Why would they consider this? And everybody's success, what they identify or determine as success is different. And so what is it for you? And these are the things that we hear time and again. They're not fulfilled in what they're currently doing. They don't have enough flexibility in their life, both their personal life and their work life. They like being independent. There's a financial security that can be achieved through business ownership. Certainly more control over your life because you're the business owner. Certainly money is part of that. And for folks that have had this experience, I have personally been laid off a couple times in my career. If you're in those types of industries that tend to have more layoffs because of mergers and business transitions through companies, sometimes it's just, I'm sick of doing that. So those are some of the things that we hear consistently, and it's probably a combination of those things. It's never any one thing for exclusively. What are some of the concerns? These, again, things that we've heard consistently over the years. That it's a risk. Absolutely, for sure it is. But a job is not as secure as it once was. Again, companies merge, they lay people off, they reorganize. The days of like my dad working for the same company for 40 years, it doesn't happen as much anymore. So there is a risk to owning a business, certainly. But there's risk to lots of things, including, just having a standard job. Money, it costs a lot. We're going to talk about that later. It's all relative, but it's not as expensive as most people often think it is, depending on what you would end up choosing. Knowledge, hopefully we can help with this. I don't know. What do I do? I don't know where to start. How do I even figure out the first step? Once you're in business, the great folks at SCORE can help, but hopefully we can provide at least some initial knowledge. And then the skills, we're going to debunk that a little bit too. I think people oftentimes think, well, I've never owned a business. How would I do that? But everybody has a past. Everybody has a career prior to whatever they're doing now, and they've acquired skills. And oftentimes those skills can be transferred. So we'll talk about that as well later. So I'm just going to check this chat and make sure. Okay. Just want to make sure there wasn't a direct question. So options. You can start something from scratch. You could be the next, Steve Jobs or whoever your favorite entrepreneur is. You can buy an existing business. And the third way is to invest in and be a franchisee or buy a franchise model. So let's talk a little bit about each of these. Advance this, sorry. Pros and cons, not an exhaustive list, but some things to think about. So if you're starting your own business from scratch, you have all the control in the world, you make all the decisions, great for creative people, no rules. You're not sharing this with anybody typically, unless there's a funding partnership. And oftentimes it's something, I've seen this a lot, where you can, build something that you're really, truly passionate about, or what's, follow something that's important to you. Some of the disadvantages, they could be the same things. total control and make all the decisions is great, but then you have total control and you got to make all the decisions, and that can be overwhelming. So without having a model, you're kind of figuring it out yourself. So you must create all those systems. There's not as many financial options in terms of funding it. It can be very difficult nowadays to do sort of something startup on your own from a financial standpoint. So that's a consideration. Slower ramp up, certainly, because you're sort of figuring it all out. And relatively speaking, there's going to be a higher failure rate. What if I bought an existing business? What are the good and bad pros and cons there? And I preface this always with a good business, meaning, you know, a well-functioning, operating, established business. A good business should have cash flow, right? It should be positive. It should be making money. Goodwill of customers and employees. You're going to have actual financial results, which is important when you're trying to do due diligence. It is attractive to lenders because it's a known entity. Hopefully there's a market. There should be, in a good business, a market established with a customer base, some employees. Hopefully things have been documented and the systems in place. And even sometimes owners can help with financing it. So those are the, you know, some of the major advantages of an existing business. On the flip side, kind of like the last slide, some of these can be not advantages if it's not a good business. Is it distressed? Is it not making money? Does it have bad will between either employees or customers or both? Are there training systems in place, and how strong are those systems? You got to worry about employees potentially leaving that prior owner, especially if it's the kind of business where the employees are a big part of how the business functions, you know, intellectual capital. But a couple of the biggest things is, how do you price it? That can be very overwhelming and a struggle for people to know what to pay for a business. And then you really got to ask yourself, why is somebody selling it? Are they retiring? Do they have to move geographically? Is there an unfortunate health situation? You know, those are some legitimate reasons. If they're not sort of in those buckets, you got to ask, you know, why is this person trying to get out? And that can be hard to figure out. And it's going to cost more. A good business, somebody built this, somebody put their, you know, sweat and money and time and effort and love and passion and all that into it. You know, there's a price to be paid for an established business like that. Your third option, potentially investing in a franchise concept. So your advantages here are oftentimes there's some name recognition, some intellectual property around, you know, trademarks, licenses, color schemes, websites, that sort of thing that's already in place and is protected. Proven business systems. They should have very good support. It is typically a lower failure rate because there is a blueprint in place. It's relatively lower cost because they've sort of figured the things out that you need to do and not to do, and you know, what vendors to use. So there tends to be a lower cost, relatively speaking. There are great financing options because not all, but most of these companies are well known to lenders. So there's a track record there that they're willing to lend against. You have a franchise family in the franchisor who's providing all the support, but also other franchisees who are now your peers. So they can be a great source of information and assistance. And then disclosure. We'll talk about disclosure in a minute, but what you don't get with an existing business, you do get in a lot of ways with a franchise, because it is legally monitored and regulated by the federal government and the Federal Trade Commission. So there's disclosure. We'll talk about that in a sec, where you can learn a lot about the business before you invest. Some of the disadvantages, there's not a franchise for everything. So it may not, you know, always be something, or there may not be something that you're interested in, or that will work with your skills, you know, and exploit your skills. Structured operating systems, you know, they have a blueprint. They really want people to follow it. There are territories around it that could be good and bad. They typically, you know, have protection around a location, or if you're buying specific zip codes or household numbers, that sort of thing. There's restrictions around that. It protects you, but it also means you can't play outside of that. You can only sell their products, and then ongoing royalty payments. There's a trade-off for the support, the blueprint that you're getting, the experience. You have to pay them a royalty, and I'll explain that in a second as well. So just some pros and cons, things to think about with regard to the different options you have. Owning your own business from scratch, starting it from scratch, an existing business, and a franchise. I get this all the time, and it's a legitimate question. Well, why don't I just do it myself, like we just talked about, starting from scratch? And absolutely can. It's America, right? And thousands of people do it. But there are a percentage of people that they don't want to have to recreate the wheel and make all those decisions. And so the things you need to ask yourself, and everybody here can read, so I won't read every one, but these are this is just a short list of questions. Day one, you've got your business, XYZ company, and you're off and running, but then it's like, okay, I'm off and running. Do I know how to find customers? Do I hire people? Do I know my competitors? How do I price it? Where's the manual? These are all things that day one, you'll have a lot of this structure with a franchise where you don't, if you're going to do that yourself. So again, absolutely can do it on your own, but just think about all the different business decisions that have to be made. And there's so many that I don't even think of here. So just something to think about. Again, it's about the blueprint, and that's the advantage of franchising, and it's not for everybody. So what exactly is it from a legal standpoint? Franchising is simply a license to use the name, the trademarks, the products, and the business systems that XYZ franchise has built out that walks you into business day one with a blueprint. In exchange for, there's going to be a franchise fee up front, and there'll be ongoing royalty payments to this company for a typical 10-year term. So there's the trade-off. You're getting all this support and this infrastructure for the franchise fee and the royalty. So I talked about federal government having oversight and that disclosure part of the advantages for franchising. So every franchise has to file annually this franchise disclosure document. It's this long, legal, boring document. But if you're an investor, much like if you're going to buy a mutual fund or a stock, they have to provide a prospectus. Every franchise company has to provide you, as a potential or prospective franchisee, this document. It's going to give you all sorts of great information: time of business, any bankruptcies, has the company ever been sued? What is it going to cost me to get into this business in a very detailed fashion? How much am I paying them in royalties? How often, when, how is it calculated? All very important information and line item detailed, and again, very incredible detail. So there's nothing to chance in terms of information. It's also going to include the franchise contract. It's going to talk about how that territory is defined. But one of the biggest and most important parts of this is a process called validation that you would go through in your due diligence with a franchise. You get to talk to current franchisees and potentially even former franchisees. They have to list all these folks that have been franchisees, current and past. And every client I've ever had goes through that process where they are able to talk to 4, 6, 8, 10 franchisees and ask them all the questions that you'd want to have answered from an existing owner. So it's a powerful piece of information or a tool to making you feel comfortable or not in investing in a franchise. And then it's got some, other legalese around renewals and termination and transfer. Nothing is left to your imagination as to what your obligations are and what their obligations are to you as a franchisor and as a franchisee. So disclosure, very important in your diligence for any business. And franchising provides this document to help with that. So let's talk about some myths, some things that people, assume about franchising. And, probably the biggest one is it's only food and retail. Big part of it, for sure. There are literally 3,500 franchise concepts, give or take, in all these different industries. This slide's a little dated, well over 1 million units. McDonald's, for instance, has 13,000 locations. So that's part of this 1 million plus units. But it's only, the food and retail is only maybe 25% of all of franchising. So you have a lot of business to business concepts in personal services, concepts that around your home to fix and repair, automotive. So there's a wide variety, senior care. So you'll see here, if you think about some of the other buckets, senior care services, cleaning services. You think about the things that are essentials, things that even in a down market, people need. You need to have your hair cut. If there's a leak in the roof, it needs to be fixed. If your car's busted, got to get to work, it has to be fixed. God forbid there's a flood in the basement, it's got to be remediated, right? So damage restoration. And then the B2B, what we call B2B area, businesses that cater to other businesses. You got sign businesses, staffing, training type businesses, digital marketing and advertising, helping other companies promote and market and sell their product and service. And coaching, business coaching is a huge industry, helping executives and business owners improve performance. So just touching the service here, but just to give you an idea, it's not just food and retail. Always a little bit of a counterintuitive part of franchising, but one of the things that you should realize is how franchising is successful is not necessarily just has the best product. Now, I'm not saying people don't want to be proud of the product that they offer, but what makes a good franchisor powerful is the system, is what they've learned and how they execute. So if you think about McDonald's, they're great marketers. They train people tremendously. Their training programs are really solid. A number of their executives were people that worked their way up through the ranks from line, people, working in a single location all the way to the C-suite office. They're great at understanding real estate and where these locations should go. They have tremendous programs around sales, operations, and all the back office efficiency type things. So what makes a franchise successful? Yes, you need to have a good product. Doesn't have to be perfect or great. It's how they market and how they train and how they sell and how they operate that makes a franchise successful. Another sort of counterintuitive idea is that, franchises are all new products, and they really aren't new innovative type products. And that's not where franchising plays. It's really more about going into a market, understanding a service, and then having all those systems I just talked about, and basically carving out your little piece of market share. McDonald's doesn't have 100% market share in every area they're at. Think about all the other burger companies around them. And they can all do well if they operate well. So competition in franchising oftentimes is actually good. It shows there's a market for it. But what they can do is, because they've got a blueprint, they can come in, execute that better than a lot of the other concepts that might be around them. And I know there's a lot of other franchise concepts that they're competing against, but sometimes they have different customers, and sometimes there's, non-franchise concepts that simply don't operate as efficiently and as effectively as a franchise, and that's where they can win. They're expensive. Oh my God, it's $1 million. I got to already be, wealthy to be a franchisee. And really not the case. Certainly some of the higher end concepts with, a lot of build out and equipment and bricks and mortar. And you're thinking about the hotels and the big restaurants. those are super expensive, right? Well over $1 million. But especially the companies that we work with, you can be a franchisee with an all-in investment, anywhere from 100,000, sometimes even less than that, if it's like a consulting type business, to maybe $500,000 at most. I mean, the vast majority of the companies we work with, 75% are under $500,000. And again, the sweet spot is more probably 100 to 300. So that's still a lot of money. But if your thinking was, well, everything is $1 million investment to be a franchisee, not true. So what would that look like? Oh, well, even that, I don't have $100,000. Well, it's not expected to come out of your pocket 100%. Most franchise companies and lenders will be looking for, just like you would at a house, you have to have a down payment. So you're probably in that 25% liquid, meaning, actual cash out of pocket. And then there are a variety of financing options to make up the difference. So this is just one scenario, but it's typical. And so where would that come from? Obviously your personal savings, partners or relatives or the rich uncle, as I joke. I just had a client a couple of weeks ago use equity in his home to fund part of his business, not all of it. A securities-backed line of credit, which is just a fancy way of saying you can borrow against the value of some stocks or bonds or mutual funds that you have. You can borrow against the value of that. Sometimes it's seller refinancing. The one I didn't even know about until I started doing this 5 years ago was you can borrow. It's actually not even borrowing. You can use a portion of your 401k or your IRA to invest in a business without tax or penalty. So if you were to take $10,000 out and go on vacation from your 401k, you can do that, but you're going to get penalized by the government, a 10% penalty fee, and then whatever your marginal tax rate is, they're going to tax you on it. If you use that same $10,000 to help fund a business, none of that happens. The only cost will be that there's companies that help you structure this and do this. There'll be a fee and some ongoing, very minimal monthly cost to maintain the documentation, but there's no tax or penalty from the IRS. So it's I'd say half my clients use that option to at least partially fund the business. And these are just some of the companies that we work with, been around as long as we've been around doing this. So they're very reputable. And there's great options here for people to fund the business. So the more you spend, the more return you should get, the more money you should make. Yeah, that should be true, but it's not necessarily true. There is no automatic correlation between if I put in 500,000, I should make 100,000, or if I put in 100,000, I should make 50,000. Whatever your example is, there's no correlation there. And my example to that is if you bought a residential cleaning business, which had, your territory protected 200,000 residences, you can build that business, one franchise fee, you don't have to go back and pay them more. You continue to grow that business by adding households. And you can grow that business very large with the same investment. So, that can be potentially very lucrative on a modest investment. Something that's bricks and mortar, you can still make more money the more locations you have, but you got to keep putting up more money to build those locations. So again, service businesses tend to have, higher yields, especially in the near term, and you can grow, and it doesn't necessarily have this perfect correlation between how much you invest. Probably my favorite, other than the first one about it's all fast food and retail. Well, I don't know anything about cutting hair or fixing cars. If I'm going to be a Great Clips franchisee or a Meineke franchisee. And almost all the concepts don't require that. In fact, often some of them don't want that because people are going to come with their preconceived way of doing things if they have experience with it. what most franchisors are looking for business people, not technical experts like somebody that can fix brakes or cut hair. You're going to hire folks to do that. As an owner, what they're looking for is people that will use their system and that will use the transferable skills they've had from their past, whether that's management, whether that's accounting and finance, whether that's people, they've got experience hiring people, training people, developing people. Those are the skills as an owner that franchisors were looking for. They're going to train you just enough to know some of the details of it. But again, in my two examples, as an owner, you're not cutting hair to Great Clips. You're going to hire those folks. And if you want a Meineke, you're going to hire mechanics. You as the owner are not going to be fixing those things. You're going to be managing and growing the business. So what's my day-to-day look like? There's really two options. And this one is obvious. You're going to own and operate the business, so you're there every day. That doesn't mean, again, that you're in cutting hair. But if you own 3 or 4 of these Great Clips locations, you're going to be spending your time, managing the managers, managing the relationships with, the landlords, being active in the community, conducting sales and business development tasks, those sorts of things. You're managing the business, you're working on the business, not in it. So this is for people looking, to replace full-time, whether it's a job, whatever their full-time activity was. And sometimes it can even be folks that are sort of semi-retired. The other sort of model, a day-to-day look, is there are concepts that are designed to be something that somebody can do on the side. So this is the side gig. Somebody still has a full-time job or some sort of flexible, they're a real estate agent, or they have a job where their schedule is flexible enough that they can maintain the job, but also, put 15, 20, 25 hours into ownership of a franchise where they're typically managing another manager. Every business is hard work. It takes a lot of hours. But if you're managing a manager, in that kind of model, think of a gym or that sort of thing. You can do both. You can have that as a side income and still keep your typical job. And you can see, a couple of the areas why people do that: diversification, another income stream, supplemental, and maybe it's something that they're going to pass on to the next generation. So, and then frankly, there are some concepts that are sort of in between these, or one can sort of morph into the other over time, depending on the goal of the franchisee. So just to give you a little sense of, who are the people that do this, at least these are, without names, some of my former clients, people that I've placed that are now franchisees. I had a bank manager that bought a not, sexy, but a very successful dumpster porta potty business that works with smaller contractors. You can see that folks come from all walks of life. An administrator in a public school setting that just purchased recently a tutoring business. So we have people at sort of that, vice president level, but just people that are, at a manager level or whatever. They come from all walks of life, and all types of businesses. I had a husband and wife purchase this estate sale business. A lot of husband and wife teams that we work with. Another one, husband and wife purchased, they've already opened one, they've got 2 more to open, a cycle fitness type business. So, there's a wide variety of people that do this and their backgrounds, and also a wide variety of, as we've already talked about, businesses that are available, not just, the retail and the food. So one of the key things to take away from all that is, as a franchisee, it's really being in business for yourself. I call it entrepreneurial light, right? You are still in charge of the business, the day-to-day, all those activities that any other business would do: hiring folks, managing folks, providing good service, providing good product, keeping track of the financials, marketing and promoting and business developing and working with customers, all that. But you have help. You have help from the franchisor. and you have help from other franchisees. So if I'm thinking about this, what is the first thing I do? What are the steps I take? And I always tell folks the very first thing is have a clear sort of view in your mind of what the business does versus what I'm going to do in the business. And here's my example. I work, as I mentioned, for Panera Bread for a number of years. A lot of bakers that worked in that organization, just so passionate. They love what they do. Heck, they got to come in at 10 at night and leave at 6 in the morning to do it. So they must really love it, right? They love getting their hands in the dough and baking. Well, what if they said, oh, I'd love to be a bakery owner? Great. But understand that if you really like the act of baking, that as an owner, you have all these other things you need to accomplish, like we just talked about, hiring people, managing them, promoting them, working with, obviously with customers, with vendors. There's all these business functions. And if somebody else isn't doing that and you as the owner are doing that, you're not baking. And so, you don't want to be in a situation where, hey, I'm going to own a bakery, I love baking, and then find out that you don't spend any time baking and all the business activities you don't really like. So really understand what the business does and what your day-to-day will look like. You want that to be a perfect union. Then really ask yourself, do like I call it a self-inventory. What are the things that are really important to you? What are you trying to get out? What do you need to get out of the business at this point in life? Is it about a challenge? Is it about, hey, I'm a business owner? And there's nothing wrong with that. There's some prestige and recognition around, owning a great business in town, for instance. Is it about building equity for retirement? Is it a situation where, look, I traveled, I was never home, 80 hours a week, overnights, didn't see my family. I didn't have enough time for them. Is it really more about the independence and control? I get to, control my own destiny. Is it about being more involved in my my community, or having a deeper personal impact? What I did for the company was great for the company. It paid me a salary, but I didn't feel any, over time, I didn't feel any sort of satisfaction around that. And again, it could be a combination of these things, but these things are important to choosing a business because you want it to hopefully satisfy some of these needs, right? So knowing what they are, so that that's what's going to come out of it, is important. And then the final thing is, what are your transferable skills? So we talked about what I'm going to do in the business day to day. That's important, versus what the business does. Okay, what is important to me that I want to get out of it? And then, okay, now what do I bring to it? You're going to have skills that match up to the business. And then some of the other things maybe you don't have can either be hired, or maybe the franchisor provides more deep support in those areas. So again, on the self-inventory term, knowing what you're really good at. If you're a business developer, you're really good at marketing and or selling things. That's important for some businesses, not as much for others. If it's really more about providing tremendous customer service, and you like being and with customers and directly in front of clients, interacting with them, that's important. That's a business you want to gravitate towards. If you're really good at developing teams and managing people, find businesses that really require that as a really important part of the business. Again, there's a little bit of these things in every business, but some require a lot more of these capabilities than other things, and you want to make sure those line up. Or is it just ops? You're a great logistics person, you're a great project manager, for instance. Knowing your skill set and how it's going to match up to the business is critical. And so then you put that all together, and then you're going to look for some of these sort of, again, more practical day-to-day things. How many employees am I comfortable managing? Do I want to be in a suit every day or a polo? Do I want to be managing multiple units or just one location? Am I comfortable if it's a new industry, or would I like something that's more established? Am I more comfortable providing a service or selling a product? Do I want business customers, or do I want, so the B2B, or do I like more consumer, like direct to consumer? These are all things, again, to consider. Once you've figured out the other parts, what does that business actually offer and what does it look like? So those are the components of what we call a business model. Knowing your function of the business versus what the business does, knowing what your transferable skill set is, knowing what's important to you and what you need to get out of it, and then understanding what your day-to-day looks like within that business, these components here. And so that's an overview. I promised I'd do it in under an hour. Hopefully, it looks like I achieved that, 45 minutes. A lot to think about, a lot to unpack there. So I am happy to answer questions, but my contact information is here. That's just scratching the surface. It's just a really 101, as it indicates, a high overview. And you can also use that little Q code there if you want to contact me and fill out a quick survey. And there's a couple different ways here you can connect with me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. No obligation, no cost, and just here to provide info and help.
Okay, great. So you can put your questions in chat, or you can use the raise hand icon on your Zoom bar, and I can allow you to speak and ask your question out loud. We're happy to do either. I see we have somebody. Great. Give me one moment. John Ann, you should be able to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yes, I have unmuted. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hi, Dana. Thank you very much for your work today. I actually was nodding the whole time that you were giving this presentation, because I purchased a franchise before I knew about SCORE. So I went through all the process that you spoke about by people helping me. And then I got in touch with SCORE, and they solidified that what I was doing was correct. I did hire an attorney who looked out for my benefit on my contract. The franchisor that I purchased from, she and I had been a customer of hers since 2013. So, I really had a good feel for this business. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate the work that you put into this webinar. And if someone else follows what you've put down today, they'll have a good foundation under them. I'm not opened yet. I did have that. I'm the owner of the franchise. I did have to hire a technician because it is a service.
Yep.
And I wound up letting her go after close to 9 months of training that I paid for. So over $10,000 I paid for her training, and I had to let her go. Yeah. So it set me back. Thank goodness it only sent me back the time of opening the franchise, or let me rehire somebody or start interviewing again, and then hired somebody else. And she just kind of swallowed that money, and I greatly appreciate it. So I suggest, if people are looking for franchises to purchase, look around what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and see if there's something that you have a rapport with, because I don't think any big, huge, I don't know, but I don't think any big, huge corporate franchise would have done that for me. And I am so greatly appreciative of that.
Well, I thank you for saying that, and also for sharing. And you pointed out a great thing regarding the attorney. There's a lot of details, obviously, I didn't include here, right? Because it's less than an hour, but
right, and it's beginning.
Always, when I get to a certain point in a process with somebody, usually at the point where they're pretty serious with one franchisor, and they've maybe even gone to visit them, their discovery day, whatever. That's the point.
It's under the
probably
towel.
it's probably the first time that you're going to actually spend any money. is I say,
Yeah.
get a franchise attorney to review that document and make sure you're comfortable with it before you sign anything and move forward. I mean, it's critical. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because having experts, again, probably down the road when you're really serious about one particular concept, actually absolutely have to have a franchise attorney that can review it.
Yeah, he rewrote paragraphs and pages because he's like, no, this will hurt you.
Yeah.
So how he rewrote it, and of course I went back and forth for at least a month with the franchisor, and I said, well, what about this paragraph? And she's like, nope. And so I went back to my attorney, she went back to her attorney, and we finally found an equal ground. And there's much that my franchise attorney knows, much more he knows than I do about this contract. So if there are questions, if anything bad happens, I'll go right to him and say, now what can I do about this so I don't get screwed?
Yeah. Yeah.
Vocabulary, but so I'm really happy. And just as a side note, yesterday, the franchisor is the one who's doing the training of my tech, because it is a hands-on service. And one thing that you did say is, are you going to be the manager, or are you going to be involved in the actual, let's just say, art form, or the hands-on part of it? People have said to me over and over, you should learn how to do this. You should learn how to do this so that when she gets sick or whatever. But my heart isn't there. My heart is in the management part of it, the customer service part of it, the business end of it. So that's something to think about. Eventually, I may have to learn this skill, but not at this moment. Let's put it that way.
That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, especially when it's, when any company is younger, there's a lot of franchisors that, frankly, they require their owners initially to either, be in a truck or be involved directly, but they know X number of months out, they don't. It's more about understanding the actual operation day to day of whatever it does, and they know long term to grow the business. You can't be performing the tasks of the business to grow it. You can't do both, right? So, oftentimes a franchisor will say, yeah, we require or really strongly suggest a franchisee, perform a service or be heavily involved in it for the first X number of months or whatever it is, but then know enough to hire people, manage them, back off, and let the business grow. So.
Yeah. Well, this training period would have been another year for me, because it's a year for her. And I'm like, oh my God, I just want to open.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Well, thank you, John Ann. That was fantastic. Thank you for sharing all that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do any other questions, or anyone else that would like to ask a question out loud? We're happy to do that for you at this time. And I guess they haven't posted anything. So I guess we will go ahead and wrap this up. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Dana?
No, I just wish everybody a great fall weekend in New England.
Oh, I have somebody else. Hold on. Let me, Jasmine would like to ask a question. Okay, Jasmine, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Oh, okay. Hi.
Hi.
I wanted to know, if, for instance, I'm a startup. I've only been in business for a couple of years with my branding and identity. And what I do is a real estate firm, a brokerage, right? So I'm in sales. So for me, I'm part of my business plan is at some point to to franchise the idea, right? The systems and everything else. I know there are consultants for that. Is that something that your company does, or is that a completely different arm? Like, for instance, if you have you know, business A, B, and C, and then you're growing, you know, office here, office there, but then, you know, you're at a, you know, you get to a point for that transition.
So
What do you
great
do there?
question.
What are the, yeah,
I get that a lot. Great question. So FranNet, we're pretty narrowly focused. So our role is literally the matchmaking, working with a client to find the right franchise concept. That said, we do have one of probably the best or one of the best franchise consulting firms, and you mentioned it, you probably know, you probably have looked into this. Though, there's franchise consulting firms that's exactly what they do. They take an existing concept and they go through the process of franchising it, which is a fairly extensive process, actually. It can take several months. There's legal components to it. There's operational components to it. You have to have go through a process to document and put together, the manual for it. You have to file the franchise disclosure document that requires a lot of work. So there are companies, and then once you do all that, then you want to be able to sell and promote it and to grow it. So long answer is we have a partner that we would refer people if they're looking to franchise their concept, but we don't do that directly.
okay, got it.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jasmine.
thank-
I thank you everybody for joining us today, and I hope you guys all have a fantastic weekend. I think we had some really good conversations here at the end. So I want to thank Dana again, and thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Teresa. Have a great day, folks.
All right. Bye.